Hey everyone, this is Hannah with the Rocket Miner giving you today's news update video. To start off with, I just wanted to do a quick follow-up to Caleb's video from yesterday where he mentioned that law enforcement was looking for Darren Carson Calvin, who had fled and gotten away from them. Thankfully, good update to that. Just a few hours after Caleb's video, they were able to find Calvin. The sheriff's office issued a statement, and they said, "With the vigilant help of a concerned citizen, sheriff's deputies have located and with assistance from officers of the Green River Police Department apprehended Calvin near the Green River Cemetery at approximately 8 p.m. without further incident. A stolen firearm was also recovered from Calvin's vehicle." So just wanted to give that quick update. Since Caleb had mentioned that last night, but they hadn't found him at the time that Caleb recorded the video, I wanted to state in the videos that they did find him and were able to apprehend him and the stolen firearm, and just really thankful that they were able to find him really quickly. Also, as Caleb kind of updated in yesterday's video, and as we've been saying, these videos will be focusing a little bit less on COVID-19, a little more on breaking news and other things that are in the headlines, and some of the local organizations that have been providing us with press releases and updates about new COVID-19 cases, discussed, as again you can see Caleb's full explanation in his video yesterday. But they've discussed pulling back a little bit, not giving a press release for every single new COVID case, but just to not update every single time, but to give the bigger updates. And Caleb again discussed kind of some of the reasoning behind that decision, but of course that will also impact how we give you our updates and the information that we have. So we will keep giving updates. As I explained in my last video, we want to keep doing daily update videos. But as I said, these will just focus a little bit more on other things in the headlines, not always COVID-19. But with all of that being said, my video today is focusing more on COVID-19 just because we have some new information, and just with all of this in mind, I want to look at right now where our state's at and what we're planning on going forward, and also to give some of the updated information that Governor Gordon gave us about public health orders and what that's looking like for the future and for the rest of this month. So I wanted to at least give you an update on where we're at right now and what we're looking at for going forward. So as far as the COVID-19 numbers in Wyoming go, we have 793 laboratory confirmed cases, with 622 of those recovered, 216 probable cases with 192 recovered. So that's a total of, with lab confirmed and probable cases, we have had just over 1,000. We've had 1,009 cases of COVID-19 in Wyoming, but we have had 814 total recoveries, which is great. So that leaves us at about 195 active cases in Wyoming right now. And again, that's just as a reminder that as things open up and go forward, and as we give you less updates about the numbers, that doesn't mean that it's over. It is still out there, so we are still encouraging everyone to be cautious and to take precautions as they need to, just because there are still active cases, and we don't want to loosen up so much that we end up spreading and having another spike in cases. We want to keep it where it's at right now, where it's stabilizing and going down in the numbers. So it's just good to keep in mind where we're at. Unfortunately, also this week, Wyoming's death total related to COVID-19 did go up. The Wyoming Department of Health reported that there was another death, and they reported this a few days ago, but I just wanted to give a few more details about that. This latest death, which was the 18th for Wyoming, was a Fremont County woman who had been hospitalized and who was suffering from other health conditions that put her more at risk for complications from COVID-19. The department also announced that there was an elderly woman who contracted coronavirus in a Washakie County nursing home who died in Montana. So we heard about this nursing home. It was in Warland, where there was an outbreak of COVID-19. They were trying to contain it, but we have seen several COVID-19 related deaths coming from that nursing home. And this is another woman who contracted it while she was there. But she died in Montana, and I believe was a Montana resident. So the Department of Health explained that her death is not added to the list of Wyoming fatalities related to coronavirus because she was not a Wyoming resident. It's similar to the Wyoming residents who died while in Colorado, who were added to Wyoming's death total, because again, it's just the way that these things are reported, and it's the case with this, not just for COVID-19, but this is just their standard system of reporting deaths, is that these death totals are included with the total of the state where these residents are from. But it was just sad to me to hear that there was another death that was linked to the Warland nursing home, as that's just such a tragedy that there was an outbreak there among people who are so much more at risk and vulnerable. So in all of these things, I like to continue to give numbers to update you on where we're at and to look at these deaths that have happened, because again, these are people's lives and their friends and family who are mourning the people that they have lost. I think it's important for us to keep that in mind, to be compassionate, not to just say, oh, COVID-19's over, we're doing so much better now. There are still people who are still grieving and whose lives have still been so drastically changed by this virus. And I think we just need to keep that in mind in our attitude and the way that we handle and the way that we talk about things. With that being said, I am thankful that Wyoming is doing really well, and we are starting to reopen things, and just to have a little more flexibility, because our numbers are doing pretty well right now. So Governor Mark Gordon just recently announced some more details about the next phase of public health orders that we're going to see. The new public health orders are going into effect on June 15th. And they will continue easing some of the restrictions that we've seen that are still in place, especially restrictions on public gatherings and some things like group sizes and numbers and just logistics of how those things will be handled. So the updated orders going into effect on the 15th will allow indoor gatherings of up to 250 people with restrictions. They will permit parades to occur with appropriate social distancing, and they will allow K-12 schools, community colleges, the University of Wyoming, and other educational institutions to reopen facilities and resume in-person instruction for all students. The new orders will be in effect through June 30th, and as with all of the different orders we've seen, they kind of have that amount of time where they put them in place and then they reevaluate and see what else they can change, what else they can open up. So this will be June 15th to June 30th that these specific orders will be in effect. This will allow gatherings of up to 50 people in a confined space to occur without restrictions, and will permit indoor events of up to 250 people with social distancing and increased sanitization measures in place. Faith-based gatherings, such as church services and funeral homes, are exempted from the new orders and allowed to operate without restrictions, with appropriate social distancing encouraged, which is kind of a change on some of the guidelines that have been in place for them. Of course, with all of these things, these are the guidelines that the governor is giving us, the things that they follow. I think that these are allowing a lot more flexibility than what we've seen so far. Of course, thinking about things like churches and schools or colleges, a lot of it will depend on what those individual places and organizations want to do, but these public health orders just give them the freedom and ability to do these things if they choose to. Governor Mark Gordon commented and said, "Wyoming has made outstanding progress to date. Folks need to remember that it is important to remain vigilant, but because we have been so successful, I am confident we can continue lifting the very few remaining public health restrictions." In the governor's update, he also shared the metric dashboard that's been used for Wyoming that has 6 different categories of how Wyoming is doing in specific areas related to COVID-19 and our response to it. Some of those, well, the different categories are the new cases, percent of cases attributed to community spread, percent of all tests that are positive, total COVID-19 admissions reported by hospitals, total hospital bed availability, and total ICU bed availability. So these are the different categories that the Wyoming Department of Health and the governor and Dr. Harris have been monitoring to see where Wyoming's at. Like, are we doing better as far as the actual numbers go? Are we still doing okay as far as what our hospitals are able to handle right now if we do have an increase again? So they've been looking at all of those, and there are then the different categories of how each of those is doing, so they can either be improving, stabilizing, or concerning. And we've been watching as those have changed, and thankfully right now is the best we've seen on all 6 of those categories. 5 out of the 6 are listed as stabilizing, and that includes new cases, which the last time I saw it specifically, the new cases was still listed as concerning because we did still have a fairly significant increase in our case numbers going up. But now the new cases category has been listed as stabilizing, which is awesome. We are still seeing new cases. The numbers do keep going up, but it's not as drastic as it was. And in comparison to everything into the recoveries, that is actually starting to stabilize. And then it was also encouraging that one of the categories was listed as improving, which is the percent of all tests that are positive. So this is how they compare all the tests we're doing and how many of all of the tests come back positive and how many come back negative, and it gives us that percentage. And Wyoming has been doing great with that percentage. We've been a lot lower than a lot of our surrounding states and a lot of other places in the country, but still that one was usually listed as stabilizing the last few times I've seen it, and now it's listed as improving, which is the first of these categories to be in that green area of actually doing better now. So I thought that was encouraging to see how the numbers are stabilizing and improving in so many areas, and how the governor is keeping that in mind and still watching carefully what's going on, but feels the ability to give us these new public health orders that have a lot less restrictions than what we've seen so far. So things are continuing to do better and to reopen, and I think that's really encouraging. It's great to see that we are making progress with this. Of course, I continue to remind people that we still need to be careful. We need to not jump the gun and go do things that just aren't wise. We still should take the precautions and social distance when we can, but I just think it's great that we have a lot more freedom and flexibility in what we are able to do now than what we have previously, and as long as we keep being careful, I'm hopeful that Wyoming will continue to improve in those areas. So just wanted to give you those updates on where we're at, and just encourage you to continue being careful and being smart about doing things, but to enjoy the freedoms and opportunities that we have now to do things we haven't been able to do for a while. And I'm just hopeful that as we keep being careful with this and keep responding to COVID-19, that Wyoming will keep moving forward and seeing progress. Thank you. Keep checking back with us for more updates, and have a good night.